what I can discuss with you, or you two together. Did you have another question?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Where does the, when you say credential checks and personality assessment, does that mean you have a profile of psychological or deviance of whatever, however you want to define that? Do you use that? You take that into account when you, like, this person may be falling into this category of whatever, a threat. So you know how to analyze that.
You're talking about profiles,
right?
In some jobs, yes. First of all, I recommend that you always do a credential check. I had something interesting happen to me several years ago. I had my own company in Texas for about 12 years, and this guy came in, since you're all Big Ten, and gave me a resume. And everything, I mean, this guy, his resume was so great. It's like, I'm flattered you're asking me for a job, right? I noticed he got a bachelor's and a master's from Ohio State University. Does anybody pick up on what's wrong with that? You ever meet anybody, maybe because I lived in Ohio for a while, that calls it Ohio State University? The Ohio State University. I picked up on it immediately, and I did a credential check on him and found out it was bogus. They'd never heard of him. Okay? Yeah, any company should do that. But also a personality assessment, we do that when we interview on a low level anyway. You know, do you look me in the eye when I talk to you? You know, are you talkative? What kind of stories are you telling me? When I interview people, a lot of people have said, you didn't give me much of a technical interview. That's because I got people to do that. I'm trying to find out how you're going to work. That's on one level. A second level is you do see a trend now of more and more companies doing personality assessments or profiles. Okay. And again, it has to do with some levels of different security on jobs you're going to do. I had a great guy work for me once, but if you looked up the picture of the word computer nerd in the dictionary, it would have had his picture and fingerprints. I mean, this guy was like totally non-social, just the Dilbert stereotype, right? I heard him one time yell, and the person he yelled at was so surprised that she broke into tears, right? And he told me a sad story that he went to volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club, and they didn't take him as a volunteer because they considered his behavior style deviant. Okay, they kind of looked at him and said, yeah, I'm kind of wondering why you want to be here, kind of thing. So that's kind of a soft assessment, right? Did you have another question or follow-up?
I actually have a question.
Yes.
You are getting there on the wrong speed, but I'm surprised that financial processes are so low. Kat Duisberg, whom you know, has a passion for Agatha Christie novels and for trying to guess what happens. She says that she follows the money, and 99% of the time she guesses what it is. So I wonder whether your financial processes assess things like the person's needs for money, his lifestyle and stuff like that, or whether you just process the money coming in and out of his or her account or whatever.
Well, there's a couple things that would stand out. Years ago, probably before most of you guys were, even knew that computers existed, they broke a major computer hacker. And he was doing one of those classic things where you rounded off the penny, And the way they got him was his wife was spending way too much money, And it was totally, somebody was in his house thinking, how does somebody live like this, right? Now there's quite a bit of financial, for probably $25 or $40 on the internet, you can do find out if anybody's got judgments, things about them, find out what kind of car you drive. I mean, they can find out a lot, and just say, does that kind of fit in the normal parameters?
Well, still, nevertheless, with all of that, it's hard to figure out that somebody is spending more money than they legitimately make.
That's true. That's true. That's true. They hide it on a cash
and
basis.
There is always the Aunt Mildred excuse. She died and left me $1 million, yeah.
I've been looking for an Aunt Mildred for a while. Yeah, right. I think you're going to see more of this, though, more of this electronic integration to do that. I want to find out what kind of car you drive. If you're a 22-year-old struggling Purdue student and you're driving a Lexus, kind of raise some eyebrows. There's only so many Aunt Mildreds in the room, or in the world. And there is quite a bit of financial information you can actually pull from people now. I saw a hand, or Yes, sir.
So you're saying basically that when you go for a job that needs clearance, you have to declare, like, if you had inheritance or anything?
If you go to a job for clearance, yes, you have to declare. They look in your financials frontwards and backwards. They have to explain. I had a friend that happened to, in fact, and they came back and said, how did you manage a down payment when you were between jobs? Where did you get the money? And he was like surprised they even picked that out. Yes.
Well, do you sign over access to your tax records, or do they have direct access to the IRS?
I doubt if they, I think it's probably against the law to have direct access to the IRS tax records, but you probably sign over where they can do a credit history on you.
That's what I was going to say. That you realize that the first thing that happens, you sign, basically, you denounce your human rights.
Yes.
And I'm not exaggerating.
No.
The chances are that you're not doing it. But basically, all the protections, all the checks and balances, everything that protects our privacy, you denounce.
Right. Right. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but one of the things we overlook is the vulnerabilities in our physical infrastructure. My friend that I'm working on the book has one of these little electronic devices, and wherever he goes, he scans for drugs. It's kind of funny, in a way, but and we've come up with, and I've just kind of summarized it here, a whole list of things to check for in the physical environment. And you think this can't happen, right? I lived in Austin, Texas for 8 years. One of my friends worked for a company called Austin Information Systems, and they found a van of guys in a van with listening devices that were so sophisticated they were picking up everything that was being said in the offices. So let me get through here. Basically, all security is different boundaries. This is what I was alluding to when I said about people you let in your house. People when you have your house and you go from the locks and you go to the fences and all this. And what we're struggling with when we're putting this framework together is when you take the boundary issues across those aspects that I talked about, across the communication, the physical, the people, and the like. And that's why I don't have a framework to show with you, but basically our framework is going to be more three-dimensional. And I don't need to go through all this, but this is on that same thing. You give me your name, I'll Google you, right? I mean, that's a no-brainer. And there's certain things I can find out. I didn't know some of the papers I had written were published in Russian until I Googled my name one day. But then there's this next level, so you're kind of going from the open air to the fence, where people can start picking up your habits. And if you filed a lawsuit. There's a lot of things in public records if you know where to look. If you got a judgment when you buy a house. Right? This is one of the things banks do, is they go through and check because they want to make sure their customers aren't showing up on bad lists. And then there's that next level, again, going through the building analogy. We're out, we put a fence, we let some people in our front door. That is more secure for you, your finance, your contracts, where you owe the IRS, and the like. Now, what's this all about? You might be sitting there thinking, this woman has a PhD in computer science, First of all, it's a true systems engineering approach. We're trying to come and bring a lot of stuff together. Second of all, it's interdisciplinary. This afternoon I met a fellow, and his name escapes me, from psychology, and he started talking about how they're trying to come up with ways to come up with better passwords. Yeah. Right, and human factors. And so it's interdisciplinary. There's certain psychological things in here. There's profiling. Then there's a little bit of philosophy in here. When you do a policy, how much of it makes sense? There's no point in implementing a policy that people don't want to follow. It'd be like getting up in the morning and somebody saying, put on your left shoe first and tie it halfway and put on your right shoe. People don't see a reason for doing it. They're not going to do it. I'm using the notions of framework, as I said, that I got from Zachman, and then ontology, where you can bring sense and meaning to the information. Okay? And this is one of the things that I think Victor and I hopefully someday will collaborate on, is how to understand this whole process based on analogical approaches. As I said earlier, our goal is to develop a roadmap for a truly integrated environment